And we're on. Okay, so welcome everybody to the latest edition of the MarTech Book Club. This is our second club meeting. This is for spring first quarter of 2019. And our book today is the one that Jessica is going to be holding up, called 12 Powers of a Marketing Leader. And we'll hand it over to Christina and Jessica to kick the ball off. And I guess we should start with a round of introductions, right? So I'm Michael Tucker. I'm the leader of the Marketo Manufacturing Virtual User Group. I run an agency, a marketing technology consultancy specializing in Marketo called The Conversion Store. And let's go that way to Christina.
I'm Christina Zuniga. I am the mug leader for Santa Barbara, and I work at a company called Databricks. I'm the marketing operations manager.
And Fearless 50 marketer, don't forget that.
And Fearless 50 marketer, that's true.
We'll go that way to Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Cow. I'm Client Services Director at Digital Pie. I run the Silicon Valley Marketo User Group, fellow Fearless 50 marketer, and did not finish reading the book, but Christina bullied me into reading a section. So thank you for peer pressure on reading this book. All the Fearless 50 folks got this book. It's probably been sitting on your desk as it's been sitting on mine, collecting dust. So that's why the impetus to get our butts in gear and kind of learn a bit from each other.
Gently nudged.
I'm glad you said that. I have the exact same problem. I don't think I've read the chapter either. So let's continue with our Brady Bunch theme and go to Helen.
Hi, I'm Helen Abramova. I'm leader of MAG in Washington, D.C. I work in telecom as a Marketo technical lead.
Brooke, I know you can't see this, but we'll go to Brooke.
Hi, guys. I'm Brooke Bartos. I'm the Marketing Automation Manager at Walker Sands Communications. We're a digital marketing agency based in Chicago. I lead the Chicago area Marketo users group and am also a member of the Fearless 50.
Great. And then Bill, would you mind introducing yourself?
No, not at all. I went ahead and flipped the computer open there. And I got my book too. So
nice.
Bill Brown, I am Director of Marketing Operations for Phillips 66 Lubricants Group, and I oversee our Marketo instance, our demand generation efforts, and work closely with, we use an outsourced third party to stroke most of the keys, but that's our role here, and we've been having some great success with it. We're not a Silicon Valley type of company, a big oil and energy, and we sometimes will lag a little bit, but when we get moving, we can move with a lot of force. So it's been a great project. So glad to be part of this.
We're glad to have you. I can appreciate that as well too. I work mostly with the manufacturing group, and so very much in the same line that you're saying too. Christina, can I hand it over to you to kind of take the reins from here and move forward on this one?
Sure. Sounds good, Michael.
All right.
So for those of us who got through at least some portion of the book, I trust everybody at least read the title. The intro talks a lot about where we in marketing are today and where we could be in the future as a more strategic partner within the organization. And Jess, you were saying some stuff about the V-Zone. Could you explain the V-Zone to us?
Sure. Well, I was gonna say, what I can do is I can start with kind of like the overview of the 12 powers. How about that? And is that all right? Can we do that?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So basically, so for those of us who haven't read the book, or went as part of the Fearless 50 group, went to the webinar where Thomas Barta actually talked about, kind of did an overview. 12 powers are really broken down into, there's actually a little self-assessment here, and it talks about how basically this book is like a summary of all the research, right? So he did a lot of research to understand successful marketing leaders and what does it take to be a successful marketing leader, and broke it down into skills that we can all learn. And some of the interesting things that I found was that one, it's not necessarily, how some people break things down by personalities. Like, well, this isn't personality agnostic, right? It's really about skill sets that all of us can learn. And the second thing, so the main thing is that he broke down like the ability for us to influence up, so to bosses, influence ourselves, influence peers, and influence our team. Those are the 4 dimensions of influence. And each of those dimensions of influence have 3, what he calls powers, or skill sets that are associated with that. So that's how we get to the title of the book, which is the 12 powers of a marketing leader. So I was thinking what we could do today is, each, whether we read the whole book or not, each took a section, each took an influence area, and kind of talk about 1 or 2 of the powers, so we can go into depth about the powers and how they impact your career and business, the career and business paths. But the V-Zone, which Christina was talking about, it's at the very beginning of the book. The V-Zone is really important. It talks about the intersection between the customer needs and the company needs. And I think the V-Zone is pretty important because he basically repeats the V-Zone concept like over and over and over again, probably about 30 or 40 times in the first, either the introduction or the first chapter, where like basically we need to be operating or thinking about this V-Zone. Let me see if I can find the Venn diagram real quick. Is anyone? Here.
I don't know if you can see.
Here we go.
Oh, and I made notes on mine too.
There you go.
Yeah.
So this V-Zone is the intersection of customer needs and company needs. And it's this where it talks about your power lies in the space where customer and company needs overlap. And if you as a marketer operate in this magic V-Zone, that's where both your career and business, what was the 2 things, that both your personal career and your business impact has the greatest, and then the leadership and the promotions, all that stuff will come if you operate in that. So, and before we started this, I was casually talking to these guys about the V-Zone, which is, as marketing operations person, and we're all marketing operations people, I don't naturally think in the V-Zone. So it's definitely something that's out of my comfort zone. The examples that they give were things about, how can we price things so that the customer sees value in them? What were some of the other examples that you saw? Things that are generally not within our purview, as a marketing operations person. So the concept of the V-Zone, I understand that, but I can see in the future, if I was a VP of marketing or a CMO, I would have purview where I could actually influence this V-Zone. But as a marketing operations person, how do I think about putting myself in this customer needs and company needs? And that's what I wanted to pose to all of you smart people, because and kind of clearly there's something I'm not thinking about. So I'll toss it back out to you, Christina, and to the rest of the group. How are you guys thinking about the V-Zone and how you guys can impact the V-Zone today?
I'll go. I think you bring up a really good point where, as marketing operations, I've always sort of taken the strategic direction from managers and from the CMO and tried to interpret that and build systems or put into place campaigns that reflect that. But not every marketing leader pushes down to people below them and explains it. And so what I took away from the V-Zone is, if I'm not getting that so that I can interpret it, what I need to do is to start to look to see how they're acting, our current marketing leaders, to see if I can interpret what the V-Zone is that they're trying to get to. Because I think part of what this book is saying is that as marketing leaders, it's not always clear that we're working towards the V-Zone. And that's what CEOs and other C-levels aren't seeing. And that's why marketing is sometimes made fun of. But from our point of view, if we want to move up, I also noticed a friend of mine did marketing ops, stuff like that, sales ops, and is now moving into product development. And I was asking him, what made you want to move into that? It doesn't really gel with what you've done in the past. And he said, in order to become a VP of marketing, which is his goal, he really needs to get a rounded out feel to his career. And so he has this whole plan in place. And it really reminded me of this book. I was like, did you read this? The answer is no. He just organically came up with it, but it really aligned to what this is saying about rounding out to things like pricing.
I think I see a lot more of that kind of quantitative approach that's happening now that we have the digital tools to kind of be able to manage the actual response at a demand. And, I think you know, without kind of getting to be kind of too pigeonholed, I think that if you look at some of the marketing tactics before digital was available and some of the metric tools that we have, right? A lot of the questions that you hear are, you know, listen, we don't want to do marketing just for the sake of awareness or branding. We need to be able to see some sort of a return on investment at the end of the day, which kind of speaks, I think, to a parallel of what you're talking about there. I see it now, especially working as doing consulting with people where, you know, you need to be able to deliver value at the end of the day, right? It pays if you come to things with a focus of trying to take care of other people and trying to, you know, help them pay their bills, that also helps you pay your bills. And I think overall, it just speaks to the overall, you know, you have to have a sense of exactly what the value of your time is, not just for yourself, but for your overall organization, how to be able to apply that properly. I heard a great podcast the other day from Demand Gen, and I think it was basically they were talking about SDRs and sort of the mathematics behind how you have a sales development rep on your team. You know, what the cost of that person is warranted towards the results that they're bringing back, and how that's different from the costs and the returns that you'd see from a full-blown account executive that you might pay to fly to a conference, for example. I thought that was an interesting point. You know, I've been in sales for a very long period of time, and, you know, thinking about it as an employee and not necessarily as a business owner, that, you know, if I want a raise, I need to be able to show the justification for the value that I'm delivering to that organization. It kind of fit in with sort of like what, actually, if I jump back to the last book, it sort of fit into what Bill McDermott was saying in that paragraph where he's like, you know, hey, what's my value add and what am I going to do with that?
And something that they cover in the beginning of the book. Oh, Helen, did you want to?
Yeah, you know, I feel that in general, being in marketing ops, it's kind of blessing and a curse in terms of we are pretty far from actual like frontline where money happens, right? At the same time, we are super critical for that. And Christina, to piggyback on what you just said, it's just like we need to translate it multiple times, like what we are doing, how it's impacting, you know, everything that happens before, like between us and I feel this is very easy to drop for us. At the same time, it's a huge opportunity if we can show how it directly impacts the business outcome. I don't know how, honestly. I feel like this is, always been a challenge for any company, for any professional. But I believe this is a huge opportunity. If we can show, if we can explain, if we can tie our work, everyday work, to the business impact, it's going to be just phenomenal.
Yeah, like some of the one of the big aha moments for me in the first couple of pages in the book. So if you only got to the first 15 pages, you will get something out of it, I promise. Maybe that's an impetus for you guys to read the book. But he said, as marketers, you know, kind of tangentially related to the V-Zone, and what Michael was saying about your career-wise was, you know, there are an infinite number of like technologies and skill sets that we can get. And he's like, stop trying to get skill sets. Like, we have to be okay with, you know, when we move up, we're going to be managing people that are going to be doing things that we have not done. And like that innately is not comfortable for me, because I want to like know and how to do everything, right? We want to learn like all these different skills. And he was saying, like, to move up in marketing, it's not about that, right? Focus on the V-Zone, again, that mental switch. And then instead of gaining skill sets and learning new software, the speed of the MarTech space, it's going to move too fast. You're going to hire people that are doing stuff that you've never done before, and you need to be okay with that. And that to me was like this big like smack in the forehead, like, oh, aha, you know. So I thought that was kind of one of my key takeaways within the first 10 pages.
Yeah, Jessica, I would tell you that you know, I'm living proof of that, because I'm on probably the opposite end of where a lot of your careers are. And as far as something like marketing automation, you do not want me in front of the keyboard, because your emails will go everywhere but where you wanted them to go. And I don't do all that. But I have a deep enough and I've gained enough understanding to know what marketing automation can do for the business. And so I'm directing that. But without the expertise of the team that's actually stroking the keys and guiding those conversations, then it allows me to work through management, kind of try to stay aligned with what those strategic goals are. But man, if you're in there every day trying to do everything yourself, then you get into that, you know, micromanagement, and then productivity just goes to the wayside.
So I like that a lot, actually. That one of the things that I have really come to value. So I have my undergraduate degree and I have my postgraduate, and the postgrad was more in technical skills, but my undergrad side really focused a lot more on management information systems, which I thought was going to be really big and technical. But what most of that curriculum turned out to be, and what this was a long time ago, but I still use it quite heavily, has been being able to properly map out business requirements for people, and being able to kind of flesh out, situations. I've run into a number of them where people get too into the technical weeds of, hey, this would be really interesting to be able to do and really neat, and then lose sight of, oh, but wait, that's not actually what the business wants, or you never see a customer say, hey, I would do this only if you had that extra field in your database, maybe in software, but the even then, that really never happens, right? So I think that's important to kind of say, hey, let the business requirements drive the technology. And if you think of people the exact same way as kind of the enablers, everybody comes to the table with a different skill set. If you can be the person to help to orchestrate that gets you through the whatever wave of technology we're on, if it's the first or second or third generation of just think of programming languages, right? How many COBOL programmers do you need right now? But how many times were we at an advocate party, all of us together, and I had a great conversation with some of the other MUG leaders who actually were in the COBOL space back in the day, and we had this great conversation about using web trends for analytics before Google Analytics was a thing.
Yeah.
We all pivoted, because you had to. And a lot of us wound up in management positions today because we recognized it's the value that Web Trends provides with the analytics, not that it's Web Trends.
I think all of this is a really great point that you can be an excellent marketing practitioner and have exquisite control of a technology piece, but that doesn't necessarily also mean that you are a good marketing strategist, and vice versa. I mean, I think we all know people who, can execute flawlessly, but if you ask them to actually think through their own strategy and make a plan, it may not accomplish the things that you're looking for. And then additionally, being able to translate that type of thing into other areas of management, like people skills. There may be, excellent technology and strategy folks who just don't really have the best qualities for managing people underneath of them, even if it's technologies that they may not be overly familiar with. And so that's where there's a lot of key pieces that come in together in really making the strong marketing leader that's not just associated even with the on-paper skill set.
And I think that's one of the great things about this book is that what Jess was saying about how it gives you these strategies for helping to pull together all of these different groups, whether it's your team or your boss, motivating them to go towards what they call the V zone, the value zone. But so that as an organization, we can accomplish goals more strategically and better and push ourselves forward. I think Jess was going to talk about mobilizing your boss, which to me was honestly the most valuable section.
All right, great. We can start going into the power. So the first influence is influencing your boss. And so when we took the assessment, the influencing your boss one was my weakest one. So it's just why I picked it. Christina's nudging / peer pressure. I picked up, and so actually so I outlined a couple of quotes. So there's 3 powers. Each power is given a percentage. I'm trying to find the place. They give a percentage for business impact and personal career. So they're not all equally weighted, the three powers with each influence. And for this one had the highest mix of both. And the power was, the power is, tackle only big issues. And that kind of goes into the whole V-zone discussion that we just had. But a couple of highlights for me for tackling only the big issues. They talk about, basically, why does marketing not get any respect? And it's because sometimes we're kind of bogged down in our own language, right? If we think about, we speak in terms of MQLs and leads and cost per, like all the stuff that we're so used to day in and day out. And it's almost like a foreign language to the CEO. We're not speaking the same language. And the other thing that I highlighted was like marketing always speaks in the future world of possible, right? Like we're not really grounded in, facts. Actually, that's the second power, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But tackle only big issues. And the things that I highlighted were basically, it's really finding that V-zone and finding issues that relate to the V-zone and finding things that the CEO and the executive leadership care about that align with the customer needs. So it's really a lot about V-zone. And there's one particular part that I highlighted, right? So for example, what is leading an issue, an example of leading an issue? So on page 35, they talk about leading a big digital issue. They talk about, shaping the digital strategy, and this is what Brooke was talking about. Shaping the digital strategy is complex, but it's doable. Unfortunately, many marketers confuse digital strategy or any kind of strategy. How could digital help us expand the V-zone? Instead, we're so focused on tactics. What do we all go to? What do we all talk about every day, like on Slack with each other? Which digital tools should we use? And that's like, basically, as they say, that's like choosing a car color before knowing you need a car in the first place. And so that, I thought, was a good way of how it encompassed the fact that it's just that mindset change of how to tackle the big issue. And, I'm reading this, I don't know about you guys, but I'm, with you guys and reading this book about trying to improve like career, right? How do we move up in progression? And in here, what was interesting, and I was using this also with my own team as an example, and it actually worked really well, was like, instead of asking for promotion, like what Michael was saying, is instead of asking, or we're talking about value, ask instead to lead a big issue and lead it to a resolution, right? Because then you're doing business impact, then you have career impact, and then the quote unquote like promotions and accolades and all of that stuff will come when you can prove and show your value. How do I prove and show my value? By finding that big ticket item. So that's really the kind of the key takeaway that I took from the first power. And I won't talk too much about the second power. The second power is about data, and I feel like that's something that we're all used to. That's something that was very like, oh, well, this is stuff that we should be doing, and we do it every day anyway. The second power was deliver returns no matter what, and it had to do with data. It's just always bring data, but that's something that we always do anyway, and that the burden of proof is on us to bring the data. But I thought that was much more in tune or aligned with, like, as a marketing operations person that we do. But yeah, so again, the big power, tackle big items. It's all about the V-zone, really switching that mindset.
I mean, I remember reading that exact section where it said, don't ask for a promotion, take on this project, step up, and all of these things. And my first thought was that probably works really well for men. But for women, they actually tell you, encourage you, make sure that your boss knows that you want a promotion so that they're considering you for that. Because women often get pigeonholed, especially if you're good at something. So that was one area where I was like, I'll still ask.
I don't know, Helen, what do you think?
I think it's, well, a lot of, to be very honest, a lot of advice that they suggest, they sounded to me a little bit like 90s or 80s, like classical pre-digital world. I know the book was published recently, but some of the, like, and maybe I was listening in the audio format, and the voice was pretty much like very well established, like professor in a very good business school, and it sounded like, but I was
just sifting through, and they were very good advice that I believe like works perfectly for myself. And some of it was just like, well, I probably should like reconsider. And I think this one, never ask for, or like do not ask for a promotion. I think this is not a good advice, honestly. I feel like, at least from my point of view and what I can see, you have to be very vocal about what you want to do. Yeah, ask for a promotion with a big problem to solve, for sure. But like, don't sit and wait till something happens to you.
Yeah, I find that, that was the promotion side of things has always been something that's been a bit of a head scratcher sometimes, because I feel like it differs in every business. And I'd say I've been a lot more kind of not startups, but I'd say smaller businesses where you're probably looking at maybe about 20 to 40 employees, and I'd say probably sub $10 million in terms of revenue, and it's very organic there, and so it's very much like you don't really have job titles and pay scales per se. You just take things on, and then you put in your time, and then you sort of move on. If that's to a different company, or if they give you different roles, you so be it. But usually it's not a big enough company where you're saying, okay, now I'm being moved to department 23, and with that comes a pay increase. I did some work at a major bank up in Canada before, and that was probably the one exception to that. And then I find that's more they have specific rules. You have to be here a year. You have to have this much of a performance metric, and everything is measured completely. So they sort of that conversation is not really left to you at all. It's not left to anybody. They sort of take all of the subjectivity out of it, and they just say, here's your numbers. If you hit these numbers within a given year, at the end of your year, your performance review will show the metrics that deem you worthy for promotion, a pay increase, or whatever. So I don't know. It's funny. I look at both of those, and I see virtues in both of those, and I also see pieces of both of those that sort of frustrated me as I look back on it. And I guess part of where I'm at now is I sort of realized, you know what, I'm just going to run with the ball. I know how to make money for people, and I know how to sort of handle the sales and the marketing and the technical side of it. So, let me let me run with the ball, and then kind of contributing something back is being able to help bring other people into the projects that I'm working on, and helping the different clients that I'm working with, so that everybody benefits in a symbiotic sort of way. So that sort of sidesteps a lot of that challenge, but it also kind of presents a different level of challenge as well too, because you now kind of own and control everything. I don't know, Bill, do you see that in terms of your people? I'm not asking you to go into details or anything like that.
No, I don't. I was going to touch on it anyway, because here, in a corporation our size, if you don't have aspirations and you're not looking to move up and you're not communicating that's actually going to work against you. It's like, oh, you just want to show up every day, punch the clock, and leave. Mm-hmm. But we take what they call talent management teams. So annually we go through our reviews and our coaching, and you talk about, well, where do you see yourself in 2 to 3 years? So you're almost forced to have some sort of a goal, because if I often tell people that I get to work with, think of your life like your business, and for a period of time you align your business goals with our corporate business goals, and you can run along. Hey, maybe you spend your entire career here, but you have to have some direction and some things that you want to accomplish in life, for you to get to that. If you go back to Maslow's theory, I mean, that's old school too, but self-actualization is really the pinnacle of what really drives great performance. So I probably, when I read them talking about just don't ask for a promotion, maybe it's like, just in caution in how you ask for it if you haven't really earned it. Don't show up on day one. We sometimes tease about, some of us started on the street working in stations, working in warehouses, and working up through it. Now we hire young, smart people right out of college that, like, do I get to be the president next week? And it's like, no, it's going to take a little bit longer than that. So, don't try to push yourself through. But I would disagree with not promoting yourself. We often struggle with the marketing of marketing within our own corporation. We've got to make sure that management understands the role that we play and how we support their strategic direction and thinking. And so we actively take that on. I don't want to jump ahead of you there, Jessica, but I circled number 5 as my favorite of all of those, which is which I instill in everybody I work with, which is the power of networking and building your network in the organization. They call it, we used to have a term, managed by walking around, and that's exactly what this is. And that's old school too, but it's so powerful.
I totally agree. Actually, the Mobilize Your Colleagues was my strength, and that is what I do. Like, I'm a big fan of walking the halls. Like, I would go and walk the SDR tables because, just say, hi, how's it going? And build those relationships. So I absolutely 100% agree with you. And so glad that that's something that is like, that stands the test of time no matter what. Yeah. It's about those people relationships.
It is so true that the reason I didn't have my video on it first, because I keep my desk in stand-up mode most of the time, because I don't like to sit down, but it's like, this looks weird, so I'm going to put my desk down and sit down and open up the laptop so I can kind of talk to you all. No, that is so it's so important to help you. It's really understanding that value zone if you're not out talking to people and calibrating. I believe that more gets done in the hallways sometimes than gets done in the conference rooms.
Boy, how much does that parallel Summit, huh?
Yes.
Right. My big thing is I was remote in the past, and then I've worked in offices with companies, and now I'm remote again. So I try to stay on Slack, reach out when I'm in the office, choose a different person and say, let's grab lunch together.
Good.
Walking the halls is so difficult when you're remote. There's just something about, I think it's the open office space. You can't help but talk to people because everyone can hear everyone. So a lot of people here are remote. How is everyone handling that?
Oh, okay, I can go. So since we're talking about that walk the hall, so out of that one, just for everyone at home, that one has the largest impact in that Mobilize Your Colleagues section. It's 13% business impact, 13% career. So like out of all the powers for that one, that's definitely the top one that's going to have the biggest impact. And I think with today's technology, right? Like I work from home 100%, servicing my clients, being on conference calls on like Zoom and being just physically being able to see all of you. I think it also changes in any opportunity to physically be with people to meet, right? Like I see you guys like once a year, but that once a year at the Advocate Party or at Summit, builds a relationship that lasts the whole year. And then I think, with Slack technology, right. It's like I talk to you almost every day, right, guys?
Right. I see you all the time, right? It's just we only meet face to face once a year, and I find that I don't have a company to be able to kind of walk the halls with now. I am the company, but the user groups are a lot like that now for me. Is coming to the Charlotte user group, and again, Brooke and Michael Guzman, the Charlotte user group leader, and I here, these are the people that I tag in when I need help on projects, when I have more work than I can handle. So those meetings actually kind of become our pseudo afternoon out with for beers with everybody afterwards. And so I don't know if you guys noticed when on the Slack channels, for example, I'm a little bit of the jokester. I'll tell stuff about like my personal life or talk about my dog incessantly or things like. It's not just because I'm sort of this goofy, happy-go-lucky guy. It's because that's my way of sort of socializing and having kind of an organizational norm. Basically, my organization is Marketo. I don't look at my business as the conversion store. I look at my business as in the Marketo community. So I play value for the Marketo instances that I work in, just as you do on yours. And that common out, and how many businesses do we know where there are only one or maybe two practitioners who work in Marketo in that business? Marketing Nation really is my organization to sort of walk the halls, and it's not physical; it's virtual in this particular space. But the user groups are really important to me, and the community, this community, the community that we all participate in, is really important to me for that reason, because we all go through the same interesting challenges, and we're all trying to move towards the same objectives, which is well, those can be broad, but generally speaking, right, it's the betterment of the organizations that are using the software that we're working within.
Well,
I think what you mentioned, the virtual walking the halls, is huge in so many of our roles, and especially with the function of remote now. You know, the Slack channel is a great example, and it's not even just being engaged in just the general community portions, but taking the opportunity to make one-on-one connections with individuals outside of the big group. That also kind of ties in with building that network, and it's important within our own organizations too. If you're not face to face with people, maybe just taking the chance to side chat them, whether it's Slack or Google Hangouts or something like that, and say, hey, you know, just wanted to touch base, or even jump on a half-hour call to just shoot the shit, get to know each other, build a relationship as a person, outside of just what can be taken in or even out of context in email if you don't have a personal relationship with someone. And then, of course, as just mentioned, if you've got things like chats and conversations like this, connecting your video when you can. I mean, I'm disappointed to not be able to share video with you guys today. I'm actually on the road right now, so as exciting as it would be to look at my cup holder the whole time, I figured I'd spare you guys from that. But I mean, being able to connect video and get that face time in a sense, even if you're not actually in person, still helps to build that connection and that relationship.
That's a great point. I think, Helen, did you want to say something?
Yeah,
as well?
I'm just saying that I work in the office, but a lot of my colleagues are not in this office or even not in this country. And for me, like, I can do both and I should do both. I'm not doing it in a proper manner, that's for sure. I don't think this is my strength for now. I didn't took the assessment, and I will definitely do that. And I feel it's funny that I was like reading yesterday, and I was like, that's exactly what I need to do more, especially as like sometimes I feel like it's much easier for myself personally do stuff by my own. Just like, I don't need your input. I'm just like, let me do it fast and quickly and have it done. And very often I feel like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, I need to stop. I need to talk to people. I need to listen to them. I need to talk to them what I'm going to do and have their input. So it's not just my own initiative, because I got this a couple of times when, you know, you're running so much fast and people are just like, what's going on? What, like, why this is happening? And at the end, you're realizing, yeah, you're like doing a lot, but people are not on board with that, or they are lagging behind. They're not adopting it because they just like have no idea what it is. So I feel like there is a good proverb that is saying, if you want to run fast, run alone. If you want to run far, run together, or something like this, or run in a group or something like this. So I think this is exactly what it is about. You really need to build this. And yes, I need to do that.
Yeah. So it's funny you're saying that about. Oh, go ahead, Brooke. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, to tie that back into how that affects your working relationships, though, and being a team. If you think about it in the idea that people tend to be more happy to work with people that they enjoy being around, or more excited to work with those people. And they're also more apt to do favors for people they have a good relationship with, a good working relationship and a good interpersonal relationship. And so when you think about teamwork, and not only just within your own team, but within the organization, so working with sales, working with your SDRs, if you have those good relationships to rely on, if you have a challenge that you need to solve as an organization and you need to get a bunch of different heads in the room, it's a lot easier to get those conversations going and have people be open to sharing ideas and suggestions if it's a relationship they're already comfortable with. And, you know, the converse is true too, is those people whom you don't have a good working relationship or maybe don't enjoy working with or being around or spending time with. I mean, how many times do you get an email in your inbox and it's somebody who maybe comes to work with a bad attitude and a negative approach and has a bad tone to things, and it's not necessarily the person whose needs you want to prioritize because of the prior things they've brought to the relationship. Whereas, you know, someone that you have a great relationship with comes to you and says, hey, can I get this favor? You might be more willing to drop everything and do what you can to help that person be successful. So, I mean, your relationship can directly affect your work, your productivity, and your organization.
I think that just speaks all the more to the reason of being able to kind of connect with people at a deeper level than just at a you know, on a work basis, right? And that's a good, you know, justification right there alone for just kind of asking people about, hey, how's your day? How's things going with your, you know, your family, if that's what you want to talk about, or you know, with whatever your hobby is or something like that, you know. How many times have you been in a job interview where they, you know, kind of say to you, hey, you know, the receptionist is usually the most important person to make a good impression with. I think to that a lot, actually. You know, I usually have really good relationships with reception. We'll kind of joke around with everybody on my way in, on my way out, whatever it is, right? And if you can put a smile on people's face, even if you don't work directly with them, you know, it's just a good thing to do as a human being, but also, you know, it also, it's kind of like a bank account in a lot of ways. You know, your life in the corporate world is what you put into it, not what you take from it.
Yeah, that
I
really
really want
is.
to. Go ahead, Phil.
Okay, I was going to say that I just reinforce that point because, you know, as I've told this story in front of groups, and I said, you know, when I first started my career, the most important thing to make sure that I had with me when I left the house in the morning to go out on my sales calls was a roll of quarters so I could stop at payphones and make phone calls, and people would look at me and wonder what a payphone is because you don't see them anymore. Now we want to make sure we don't leave without our iPhone or a cord to charge it during the day, or the world falls apart. But the reality is, even when we working through all of our marketing, all of our efforts to connect with people, to top of the funnel, to filter down through the MQL, the SQL, hand it off, the reality is people want to do business with people. And the classic one for me nowadays is the Discovery credit card commercial where the person is calling themselves at the bank, because it's starting to swing back. People are getting lost in this digital space and this idea. So we do it here all the time. I mean, I know my boss's children, their names, what their interests are, you know, that my other associates, and we have those coffee chats in the morning. We get in and have a cup of coffee. How are things, you know? So building those relationships, the same as that networking in the hallway, because at the end of the day, people do business with people. And if you kind of keep that central and that is a core belief and understanding that all of the stuff we do in the digital space and the social media really comes down to, if you're going to grow a business, people are going to let go of their money and spend that with your company. They're going to do that because they've developed a relationship of trust, of faith. They believe in you. They believe in your product. But most of the time, what you're selling to people is not a product in exchange for cash. You're selling yourself in exchange for their ability to believe. And that's what we look to make sure we're threading through all of our marketing campaigns, all of our messaging, is that it's believable. And I tell you, we're going to do a little bit of celebration this afternoon because one of our campaigns got a media award with a 97% believability in the ad claims. And that's what we're striving for, is that we can go back and say, look, we're making these claims, and we can show you where the claims that we're making are coming across 97% believable. That's really, if you're looking at media measurement, that's kind of off the chart. It surprised all of us as well. But we'll run with it because we'll be in the hallways telling that story so that we're marketing.
Marketing.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
It's very good.
I really want to call out John Eric, who is my ex-coworker, by the way.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks
So
for
good to
joining.
see you. And so Carfax is a very interesting company where this personal component is just like official component. And when you're going to apply and go through the interview, this is something that is officially asked. Like, are you ready to be part, not just like corporate culture, but like a community, a group of people who is very open to, and there are tons of things that encouraging those interpersonal relations. Like there are free lunches on Fridays, and there are tons of, and there is another thing that I'm really missing, by the way. They have
Come back anytime
a lot of
free Friday lunch.
I know, athletic events, and they have a century ride from Washington D.C. to
Dewey Beach.
Ocean. Yeah, Dewey Beach, yes.
Nice.
So can you believe that the people who are like getting together over the Sundays and Saturdays and going on a ride for a training, and then there is like a whole support group that is going along this riders group, and like it's all amazing. And it builds like those friendship and, camaraderie forever. And I'm still staying in touch with some of them, and I'm considering to join the group.
And that's what I was going to say. I'm not remote, but for those that are, we have all these like outside events as part of the corporate culture that really allow you to quote unquote walk the halls while being remote, which is nice. Like Helen said, the bike to the beach, there's picnics, there's a whole bunch of stuff outside the office that these remote employees can come in and attend and kind of walk the halls, if you will.
Yeah, I think that makes a world of difference. I think, we talked a little bit at the last book club about like corporate culture and the importance of that. And I think it means even more so in this space right now, given the demand for the type of skill sets and the services and the supply, right? It's I mean, how many of us get contacted by a recruiter or by a hiring manager on a daily basis or multiple times a day? And at the end of the day, I mean, I can tell you, personally, I really, pay more credence to the interactions that I have when I know somebody else who has like a good experience with that firm, or I think it's going to be a good match. It's less so about money nowadays than it is about kind of the experience that you're going to have in there and what you're going to be able to kind of contribute and kind of take away from all of that too. So,
I think go ahead, Michael. Sorry, I thought you'd finished.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say like that's sort of what I'm looking at nowadays. Basically, that sort of is what kind of compels me to interact with different groups.
I think it's really interesting bringing that point up. I chose Mobilize Your Team, that section, which had a lot of really good pieces to it. It was like cover your team in trust, let the outcome speak. Some pretty standard stuff, but get the mix right intrigued me because I was like, is this like the marketing mix? And it has the highest impact on business at 20%. But it's really, at its essence, is aligning your team to what the company wants to accomplish. And the biggest thing that it was talking about throughout this is a skills crisis that's going on, where we need more and more people to have these specialized skills, especially in digital. And how do you get people to that point? When I originally took the test, I had a small team, and I was hiring people directly out of college and then basically hand training them on different systems and working them towards expertise in those. But it took time, energy, and of course, you hire someone and they're like, great, they're going to take that and they're going to run with it. You don't learn Salesforce overnight. It takes time. And so what I thought was really interesting is how that ties into us, since so many people, if you're part of a user group or you're Fearless 50, or, hey, you took the time to come to this book club, you have strong digital skills. And those are in demand, especially with recruiters. But how do you take a team and help them to grow those? Does anyone, Jess, I think you have a team, right?
Yeah, I have a team, and then I'll have a bigger team after I go and have a baby and come back.
Is the baby on your team?
It's a baby onesie. You know, I still have I'll have to send you the picture where I got the onesie. It says marketer in training. We start them out young. Start them out itty bitty.
So we call a subcontractor.
Well, and that was the one, that's actually the power that I was looking at, and I was reading, like, okay, get the mix right. Well, how do I, you know, how, as a manager, you know, what's the most effective way to do that, right? You've got to balance what you were doing, which is like train, but then how do I take someone, you know, with their strengths and weaknesses, and how do I shape them to get them to their fuller potential? You know, what I'm finding a lot of it now, because I have, you know, a bunch of individual contributors that are, you know, excellent execution, or they have skill sets, right? And I'm actually using what's in this book instead of like everyone, what do they want to do? They want to get more skill sets. Oh, I want to learn this too. I want to learn Tableau. I want to learn, and I'm like, actually, my homework assignment to my team was to read this book. It was to read this book. And I'm spending more time talking about the mindset change, right? Instead of like executing and doing, how do we work smart? Like for us, we're in you know, we have clients. So I'm focusing on, it's not about gaining skill sets, like how to, you know, because that, you know, it doesn't help me to like learn velocity scripting, you know, like I can go find someone to do that. But what's more important is, okay, how do I help the team underneath me change their mindset so they're focused on being more strategic? How do you teach someone, right, to be more strategic? It's a mindset change. And teaching those skills are harder. It's harder than teaching someone like, hey, go get your Salesforce certification, right? So it's a mindset change. How do you teach someone to be more strategic? How do you teach someone to work smarter? How do you teach someone? So in my mind, the V zone, and I was thinking a lot about the V zone, is like, okay, for the role that I'm in, the role that for our company, what do we care about? We care about, you know, making our customers successful, right? And being efficient. How do we get more productivity out of each person, right? Because if you're in a services business, the asset is a person. But how do we work smarter, work more efficiently, work more strategic? So that's kind of where, you know, that's where I'm kind of playing right now with my team. I don't know, you know, Bill, you've been around the block, so maybe you've got some advice for us youngins over here.
Well, and you're doing all the right things. If I added anything, and I said what really helped me coming through the earlier years was a series of going through like the Myers-Briggs profiles, where it helps you to understand that, you know what, not everybody processes information the same way that you do. Not everybody has the same level of priorities. And when you understand that you can adjust your communications, you're both trying to get to the same end, but you guys could be having a conversation where you just keep passing because you're not hitting that, you're not understanding. And I think that type of team development is important in helping people to figure out how to improve, because otherwise you get really frustrated because you just can't seem to get people to understand. Well, you never will unless you talk in their language or hit on the things that are important. So we like to, you know, we like to always keep into consider the work-life balance. I think it's the same thing with, you know, it's a career job balance, but it's you and your career. It's that balance, and where in that value zone for your career and your business goals and those that you're working for. But at the same time, you know, you've got to maintain some level of sanity to be successful in all those areas.
Guys, I want to
I don't want to be mindful of the time.
Oh yeah.
Time.
So the time, I definitely want to respect that too. I just want to say one quick touch point actually before we kind of head off into the ether too. I strongly believe that outside of our organizations, we have a greater community responsibility, or a social responsibility, to be able to give back as well too. So Helen and I were in a conversation with kind of you know, some senior people in Marketo. And I really wanted to bring up the idea of doing some sort of charity work. Like we have a lot of value, a lot of drive that we generate as an entire group across the for-profit area. It would mean a lot to me if we could start to make a focus on giving back. So to that end, you know, the Michael Guzman and I and a small group of people here in Charlotte are working on a like a nonprofit basically to help with people who are in the Charlotte community. Income mobility is always a question here, and so we want to be able to kind of start an initiative here to start training people on at least some basic digital skill sets that they can use to apply to organizations, if it's community groups or churches or whatever like that. It doesn't, you know, put money in our pockets, but it actually contributes something back to the community, which I think is really important as from a balance perspective for work and life. And we're running short on time, so Jessica, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to pass it on to Christina.
So, Christina.
Okay, so this is like digital hot potato here. I think that's an amazing opportunity, Michael, that you and another Michael are pulling together. And especially, I mean, the book does highlight this digital skills gap. And if we did more stuff like this, then maybe it would meet that gap as well as helping a lot of people to move forward in their lives in an amazing way, because I think that we've all really benefited from our skills. It looks like we are right at the top of the hour, and so we are out of time, but we'll make sure to send out the recording. And we didn't have time to go over book recommendations, but I think everybody can submit one in, and we'll put together a survey and send that out. And John and Bill, if you guys want to submit one as well, we're happy to include it.
I will do that.
Sounds good. Yeah, absolutely.
And come back for future discussions. We'd love to have you on.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Right.
However, was it Jessica or whoever invited me? Invite me again. I was like, I'm not sure where this is coming. It's Fearless 50. Yeah, I'm one of those. And but I absolutely enjoyed the conversation and the sharing, and picked up some good points. Hope was able to share something that was valuable to you.
Yeah, if you're seeing this recording and want to participate, it's www.martechbookclub.com.
Cool.
Thanks,
Thank you guys. I got to jump. I
everybody.
got a 1 o'clock call.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.